The sun burned hot over the endless desert of Karas. The sky was clear and blue, but the heat was so strong that the sand shimmered like glass. The people who lived here, the Veshka, had learned to survive in this harsh world. They wore long robes and covered their faces to protect themselves from the wind and sun. Water was the most precious thing on Karas. Without it, no one could live. Zilla walked slowly across the dry sand. She was tired and thirsty. Her clothes were worn, and her skin was covered in dust. The mark on her left arm showed everyone that she was different. It was a dark, uneven shape, like a scar, and the elders said it made her impure. Because of this mark, the people of her village denied her water and food. They said she was unlucky and should not be helped. Zilla stopped for a moment and looked up at the sky. The sun was high and fierce. She felt her throat dry and her lips crack. Around her, the village was busy with people working and talking, but no one stopped to help her. No one offered a cup of water. Zilla knew she had to keep moving or she might die. She had learned how to survive alone. She knew where the few small plants grew that had tiny drops of moisture. She could squeeze the leaves and get a little water. It was not enough, but it was something. The wind blew hard, and dust filled the air. Zilla wrapped her shawl tightly around her face to keep the sand out. Her home was a small hut made of stones and dried mud. It had no windows, only a narrow doorway. Inside, the air was hot and still. Zilla sat down on the hard floor and looked at the empty water jar. It was cracked and dusty. She remembered the times when her mother was alive, and water was shared with her family. Those days felt like a long time ago. Zilla's mother had been kind and strong. She had taught Zilla to be brave. But when the mark appeared on Zilla's arm, things changed. The elders said it was a bad sign. They said Zilla brought trouble. Her mother tried to protect her, but even she could not fight the old laws. When her mother passed away, no one came to comfort Zilla. The village had many rules. One of the most important was that no impure person could drink from the village wells or share the community water. This rule kept the Veshka safe, they said. But for Zilla, it was a curse. Every day, she watched other children play and drink fresh water. She only wished for a drop. At night, Zilla lay on the hard floor and listened to the wind outside. Sometimes she dreamed of a place with green fields and rivers, a place where water flowed like the rain in stories. But she knew those places were far away, maybe only in her dreams. One morning, as the sun rose with a soft orange light, Zilla left her hut early. She wanted to find more plants and tried to collect some water before the heat came again. The village was quiet, and the streets were empty. She moved carefully so no one would see her. Suddenly, she heard a strange sound. It was not the usual whisper of the wind or the quiet steps of the village people. It was a low hum, coming from the edge of the village near the old ruins, curious but cautious. Zilla walked toward the noise. There, standing in the middle of the sandy plain, was a tall figure unlike any Veshka she had seen. He wore loose clothes and had pale skin that glowed under the sun. His eyes were bright and kind. In his hand, he held a small metal flask. He looked at her and smiled. Zilla froze. She had never seen a human before. The stories said they were strange creatures from a faraway world called Earth. They were said to be strong and smart, but also unpredictable. Zilla did not know if she should be afraid or curious. The man took a few steps closer and spoke in a calm voice. His words were strange but kind. "Hello, my name is Tom. I am from Earth. I see you need water." He opened the flask and held it out to Zilla. She hesitated. No one had ever offered her water before. The villagers might be watching, waiting to punish her if she took it. But her throat was dry, and her heart was tired. Slowly, she reached out and took the flask. The cool water inside felt like magic. Zilla drank carefully, her lips trembling with relief. For the first time in a long time, she felt hope. She looked up at Tom, her eyes wide. "Why do you help me?" she asked quietly. Tom smiled. "Because everyone deserves water. Everyone deserves kindness." The sun climbed higher, and the desert grew hotter. But for the first time, Zilla felt less alone. The man from another world had shown her something: new hope and friendship. As they stood together, a shadow moved in the distance. The village elders were watching. They frowned and whispered to each other. Change was coming to Karas, whether they liked it or not. Zilla held the flask close and took a deep breath. Tomorrow, she would face the village again. But now she knew. She was not alone. There was a chance for something better. A chance to be more than impure. The desert wind blew softly, carrying a new story on its breath. A story of courage, kindness, and a friendship that could change everything. The sun was still low in the sky when Tom first arrived at the village. His boots made soft marks in the sand as he walked carefully toward the settlement. The village was small, made of round stone huts with cloth roofs that flapped in the warm breeze. Around the huts, a few Veshka people moved quietly, their faces covered to protect against the harsh desert sun. Tom was different from anyone the Veshka had ever seen. His skin was pale and smooth, and his clothes were light and loose, but made from strange materials. He carried a small pack and the metal flask filled with water. He looked around with interest, but also with respect. The Veshka watched him with suspicion. They whispered to each other and pulled their robes tighter. They did not like strangers, especially not humans. Zilla stood near the edge of the village, hidden behind a low stone wall. She watched Tom closely. She remembered the kindness he had shown her the day before. The water from his flask had saved her when no one else would help. She felt nervous, but curious. Who was this man, and why did he come to their village? She hoped he would not be afraid of her. Tom walked to the village center, where a group of elders sat on stone benches. They were old and serious, wearing long robes decorated with symbols of their tribe. Their eyes were sharp and full of judgment. One elder, a tall woman named Mara, stood up. She looked Tom in the eyes and spoke in a clear voice. "Stranger, who are you? Why have you come to Karas?" Tom bowed slightly and answered in careful Veshka words he had learned from books. "My name is Tom. I come from Earth. I'm an explorer. I want to learn about your world and help if I can." The elders looked at each other. They were not sure if they should trust him. One elder, a man called Dren, stepped forward. "You bring water with you. You share it with those who are impure. That is not our way. Why do you do this?" Tom smiled gently. "Because water is life. No one should be denied it. On Earth, we learn to care for each other, even if we are different." The elders whispered again, clearly uncomfortable with his words. To them, purity was a sacred rule. It kept their people safe from danger and illness. Or so they believed. To break these rules was to risk everything. Zilla took a deep breath and stepped forward. She felt her heart pounding. For years, she had been silent, hiding her pain. Now she spoke with a small but steady voice. "I am the one you call impure. I have been thirsty and alone because of the mark on my arm. This human gave me water when no one else would." The crowd gasped. It was the first time anyone had spoken out against the elders' decision. Some villagers looked at Zilla with shock, others with pity, a few with quiet hope. Mara, the tall elder woman, stared at Zilla. "You break the law by speaking. You bring shame on us all." Zilla looked back without fear. "I bring truth. Water is life. Without it, we all suffer." Tom watched quietly, proud of Zilla's courage. He knew she was risking everything by standing up to the elders. But he also knew that kindness was stronger than fear. The villagers began to gather round. Some whispered that the laws needed to change. Others shook their heads, afraid of what would happen if they did. The debate was quiet but strong. Suddenly, a child ran through the crowd. It was little Minna, a girl about Zilla's age. She was also marked impure and often hidden by her family. Minna came to Zilla and took her hand. "I am thirsty too," she said softly. "Will you help me?" Zilla smiled, feeling a new strength inside. She looked at Tom and nodded. Together, they went to the edge of the village where a small garden grew. The plants were dry but alive. Zilla showed Minna how to squeeze the leaves to get tiny drops of water. Tom reached into his pack and gave Minna some water from the flask. The girl drank quickly and looked up with shining eyes. The villagers watched, some with surprise and others with doubt. Mara stepped forward again. You risk angering the desert spirits. Your actions may bring danger to us all. You must stop this foolishness. But Zilla shook her head. The only danger is cruelty and fear. We can be better than this. The sun climbed higher, and the heat grew. Tom stayed with Zilla and Minna, helping the children find more plants and sharing water from his flask. Slowly, other villagers came closer, curious about the strange human and the brave girl. One of the younger men, Taro, spoke softly. Maybe the rules need to change. Maybe water should be for everyone. His words surprised the elders, but no one answered. The village was changing, even if the elders did not want to admit it. As the day ended, Tom and Zilla sat by a small fire outside her hut. The stars began to shine in the clear sky. Zilla held the empty flask carefully. "Thank you," she said quietly. "You have given me hope." Tom smiled. "You have given me hope too. Maybe together we can make a better world." Zilla looked at the stars and dreamed of a future where no one would be called impure. A future where kindness and courage would change the rules. The desert wind whispered softly, carrying the promise of a new beginning. The morning sun rose slowly over the village of Karis. The sky was bright, but the heat had not yet become too strong. The Veshka people moved carefully through the narrow streets, speaking in quiet voices, but the air was filled with tension. Something new was happening, and no one knew what it would bring. Zilla woke early in her small hut. The metal flask Tom had given her was still by her side. She held it tightly, feeling a mix of hope and fear inside her. The villagers had watched her and Tom closely the day before. Some had shown kindness, but many were still angry and confused. Zilla knew the elders would not forget what she had said. She knew they would try to stop her, but she also knew that she could not stay silent any longer. Outside, Tom was waiting. His eyes were bright with determination. He wanted to help Zilla and the others, but he also knew he had to be careful. The rules of this world were different from Earth, and breaking them could be dangerous. Together, they walked toward the center of the village. As they moved, small groups of villagers stopped to watch. Some looked curious, others looked worried. Taro, the young man who had spoken out the day before, joined them. "People are talking," he said quietly. "Some say things must change. Others say we must keep the old ways. It is hard to know what will happen." Zilla nodded. "We cannot be afraid of change. We must be brave." They reached the large stone well in the center of the village. This well was the main source of water for the Veshka. It was carefully guarded, and only those who were pure were allowed to draw from it. Mara, the tall elder woman, stood near the well with other elders. Her eyes were sharp and cold when she saw Zilla and Tom approach. "Zilla," Mara said loudly, "you know the rules. You cannot drink from the well. You are not welcome here." Zilla took a deep breath. "I am thirsty, Mara. I am human like you. I need water to live." The villagers around them murmured. Some looked away. Others whispered with surprise. Tom stepped forward. "On Earth, no one is denied water. It is the source of life for all. We share it because we care." Mara's face grew red with anger. "You bring foreign ideas to our home. You do not understand our ways." Tom looked at her calmly. "I want to understand, but I also want to help. Your laws may protect you, but they also hurt people." The crowd grew louder. Some villagers shouted in support of Mara. Others stayed silent, unsure what to think. Suddenly, a child ran forward. It was Minna, the little girl Zilla had helped before. She was thin and tired but smiled brightly. "I am thirsty too," Minna said loudly. "Please, give me water." The crowd grew silent. Minna's words touched something inside many of them. Mara's voice was sharp. "This is not the way. We must follow the rules to survive." But Taro spoke again. "Maybe the rules need to change. Maybe kindness is stronger than fear." The villagers looked at each other. The idea was new and strange. Some nodded slowly. Others shook their heads. Zilla looked at Tom. "What can we do?" she asked quietly. Tom smiled. "We start small. We help those who need it most. We show them that kindness can save lives. They moved together to a small garden at the edge of the village. There, the dry plants struggled under the hot sun. Zilla showed the children how to find moisture in the leaves. Tom gave them water from his flask. More villagers began to watch. Some stepped forward and took small sips, others stayed back, unsure. Mara watched with a heavy heart. The old laws were breaking down, and she feared what would come next. That night, the village gathered in the open. The stars shone bright in the clear sky. Tom spoke to the crowd. He told stories of Earth, of people who had overcome fear and hatred with kindness. Zilla stood beside him. She shared her story, the pain of being called impure, and the hope she now felt. The villagers listened. Some wiped tears from their eyes. Others looked thoughtful. Mara stood in the back, silent but watching as the night grew deep. The wind carried a new feeling across the village, a feeling of change. The next morning, Zilla found a small gift outside her hut. It was a simple cup made of clay, with a small flower painted on the side. A note was tied to it with a thin string. It read, "For Zilla, a sign of hope, from Taro." Zilla smiled. She felt the walls around her heart begin to crumble. The days that followed were not easy. The elders argued among themselves. Some tried to stop Zilla and Tom. Others began to listen. Zilla helped more children and families. Tom repaired old pipes and wells. Together, they worked to bring water and hope to those who had none. One afternoon, Mara came to Zilla's hut. Her face was tired, but her eyes were softer. "Zilla," she said slowly, "your courage is strong. Perhaps we must learn new ways." Zilla nodded. "We can all be better." Mara reached out and touched Zilla's arm gently. "Maybe the mark is not a curse. Maybe it is a sign of change." The sun set over the desert, painting the sky with red and gold. The village was quiet but alive with new dreams. Zilla looked at the stars and whispered, "Thank you, Tom. You have shown me the power of kindness." Tom smiled. "Thank you, Zilla. You have shown me the power of courage." Together, they watched the night sky, ready to face whatever came next. The sun was high in the sky, and the heat of the desert was strong. But something new was stirring in the village of Karas. The old rules that kept the Veshka people divided were beginning to break. Zilla felt it in her heart. She was no longer just the girl called impure. She was a symbol of hope. Since Tom's arrival, the village had changed in small but important ways. More people talked quietly about the meaning of kindness. More children were allowed to drink water and play freely. And the elders, though still cautious, could not ignore the courage Zilla showed every day. One morning, Zilla woke early and stepped outside. The air was dry but fresh. She saw children playing near the well, laughing and sharing water. Some of the children were marked impure, and for the first time, no one stopped them. Zilla smiled. This was the change she had dreamed of. Tom was already working near the garden. He was repairing a broken water pipe that would bring clean water to more homes. When he saw Zilla, he waved and called out, "Come help me." Zilla hurried over. Together, they worked on the pipe, using tools Tom had brought from Earth. It was hard work under the sun, but they did not mind. They knew that every drop of water they saved would help many people. As they worked, a small group of villagers approached. Some were young like Taro, who had begun to speak openly about change. Others were older but curious. They wanted to understand what Tom and Zilla were doing. One woman named Lyra stepped forward. She was known for her kindness, but had never dared to question the elders. Now she smiled warmly at Zilla. "Thank you for showing us a new way," she said softly. Zilla felt her heart swell. "We all deserve kindness. We all deserve water." Tom nodded. "We must help each other. Together, we can make this world better." But not everyone was happy. Some elders watched from a distance with worry. They feared losing control and the safety their old laws had brought. That evening, a meeting was called at the village center. The elders spoke strongly, warning of danger and disorder. But younger villagers like Taro spoke back. "We cannot live in fear. We must be brave. We must change." The debate was long and difficult. Many voices rose and fell like the wind. But slowly, more people began to agree that the old ways needed to be rethought after the meeting. Zilla walked with Tom toward the edge of the village. The desert was quiet and calm. "Do you think they will really change?" Zilla asked. Tom looked up at the stars. "Change is hard, but it is possible. You have already started something here." Zilla smiled and looked at the stars too. "I want to believe that kindness will win." Days passed, and the village grew warmer. But Zilla and Tom did not stop. They continued to help those in need, sharing water and hope. One afternoon, a group of children gathered around Zilla. They listened as she told stories of Earth and the idea that everyone is important no matter what. Marks they carried. Minna, the little girl who had once been so thirsty, raised her hand. "I want to help too," she said. Zilla hugged her. "You are already helping by being brave." As the sun began to set, Tom called the villagers together. He showed them a small device that could collect moisture from the air. It was simple, but powerful. With this, they could gather water even in the driest times. The villagers watched with wonder. The device gave them new hope. Mara, the elder woman who had once opposed Zilla, stepped forward. She spoke slowly. "Maybe this is the future we must choose, a future where we all live and grow together." The crowd nodded quietly. Change was coming, and it was no longer frightening. That night, Zilla stood outside her hut and looked at the stars. The desert wind was soft, carrying the promise of a new dawn. She thought about the long journey from being called impure to becoming a symbol of hope. She thought about Tom, the stranger who had shared his water and kindness. She felt grateful and strong. As she closed her eyes, she whispered, "Thank you." The desert night was peaceful. The village of Cares was beginning to heal. The village of Cares was changing. The heat of the desert still pressed down on the land. But a new warmth was growing among the people. The old fear was fading, and with it, the long-held rules that had kept many apart. Zilla felt this change. In every step she took, her life was no longer one of silence and loneliness. She was surrounded by friends and hope. Yet, she knew the journey was far from over. One morning, as the sun rose red and strong, a meeting was called in the village square. The elders, still cautious, wanted to test the strength of the new ideas. They proposed a challenge, a way to prove that kindness and trust could survive in the harsh desert. Mara, the elder woman who had slowly begun to see the need for change, spoke first. "We will test the new ways. We will see if sharing and trust can help us survive the coming heat and drought." The villagers listened quietly. Some were eager, others nervous. Tom stepped forward. On Earth, people face tests like this together. They learn from each other and grow stronger. "We will help you." Zilla looked around at the crowd. She saw the faces of friends Taro, Minna, Lyra, and many others. She felt their hope and courage. The elders explained the test. For the next 7 days, the village would share all water. Equally, no one would be denied. Everyone would work together to find and save as much water as possible. The test would show if trust and kindness could overcome fear. The first day was hard. Some villagers found it difficult to share what little they had. Old habits and fears rose quickly. But Zilla and Tom worked with the children and the young people to remind everyone of the importance of kindness. Zilla helped Minna carry water from the small garden to the village center. She showed others how to use Tom's moisture collector device. Slowly, the village began to come alive with new energy. On the second day, Taro spoke to a group of elders. "We must trust each other. If we work together, we can find more water and survive the drought." The elders listened but did not answer. They still held tightly to their old ways. That night, the village gathered around a fire. Tom told stories of Earth's deserts and how people learned to share water in times of need. He spoke of courage and friendship. Zilla sat close to the fire, her eyes bright with hope. She looked at the faces around her, some filled with doubt, others with belief. On the third day, a crisis came. The main well's pipe broke. Water began to leak into the dry sand. Panic spread quickly. Without the well, the village's water supply would be in danger. The elders wanted to stop the test and return to the old rules. They said the village could not survive without strict control. But Zilla stood tall. We cannot give up now. We must work together. Tom and Taro gathered volunteers together. They repaired the pipe using tools and materials Tom had brought. Everyone helped. Some carried stones. Others mixed mud to seal the leaks. By evening, the pipe was fixed. The wells. Water began to flow again. The village cheered. The elders watched quietly, their faces unreadable. On the fourth day, a small group of impure villagers asked for permission to draw water from the well. For the first time, the crowd held its breath. Mara stepped forward. We will allow it, she said slowly. If the test is to be real, we must trust. Zilla's heart soared. She helped the villagers fill their jars. The children laughed and played near the well. The village felt alive with new hope. On the fifth day, the village's water collector caught more moisture than anyone expected. The new device worked well in the cool desert nights. Everyone shared the water equally. Zilla and Tom taught the villagers how to maintain the device and find other ways to save water. The young people listened carefully, eager to learn. The sixth day passed with hard work and shared laughter. The village was alive with new life. The test was working, but not all were happy. Some villagers still whispered in fear. The old laws were strong, and change was slow. On the seventh day, the test ended. The village gathered in the center once more. Mara stood before them and spoke. The test is over. We have learned much. Trust and kindness have brought us water and life. We will change our laws. No one will be denied water again. The crowd cheered. Zilla smiled, feeling tears of joy. Tom looked around at the people, proud of what they had achieved. This is just the beginning. Together, you can build a better world. Zilla felt the warmth of the desert sun and the warmth in her heart. She had been called impure, denied water, and left alone. Now, she stood with her people, strong and hopeful. The village of Karas was ready to face the future together. The days following the test were filled with quiet excitement in the village of Karas. The sun blazed down as usual, but now the villagers moved with a new sense of hope. The rules that once divided them were being rewritten, not on paper, but in their hearts. Zilla woke early and looked out across the village. Children ran freely near the well, and adults worked together in the gardens. Even some elders, who had once been stern and unyielding, smiled and joined the work. Tom was already outside, helping repair a small irrigation channel. When he saw Zilla, he waved her over. Together, they planned how to improve the water system. Tom explained ideas he had learned from earthways to catch rainwater, reduce waste, and store water safely. Zilla listened carefully, her eyes shining with understanding. She wanted to help her people build a better future. The village council, made up of elders and some of the younger villagers, met often now. The old laws were being replaced with new ones, laws based on kindness, fairness, and cooperation. One morning, Mara, the elder woman who had once opposed Zilla, stood before the council. She spoke with a voice full of respect and hope. We have seen what kindness can do. It is time to welcome everyone equally. No one should be called impure again. The council agreed. They declared that the mark on people's arms was no longer a sign of shame, but a symbol of survival. Everyone in Karas was family. Zilla felt a deep joy. Her journey from loneliness to acceptance had become the story of the whole village. But new challenges came with the change. The desert was still harsh, and water was still scarce. The villagers needed to learn new ways to survive together. Tom and Zilla organized workshops to teach the people about water conservation and farming. They showed how to plant seeds that needed less water and how to care for the plants. The young people were eager to learn. They asked many questions and shared ideas of their own. Zilla was proud to see them grow in confidence. One afternoon, while working in the garden, Zilla noticed a group of travelers approaching. They came from the nearby desert towns, drawn by the news of Karas' changes. The travelers were curious but cautious. They had heard stories of the harsh laws and the dangers of being impure. Tom greeted them warmly. You are welcome here. We share water and kindness. The travelers looked surprised but grateful. They stayed to rest and drink water. Zilla showed them the new water collectors and gardens. The villagers shared their stories. They spoke of fear, hope, and the power of change. As night fell, the travelers gathered around the fire. They sang songs from their homes, and the villagers joined in. The music filled the desert air with warmth and joy. Zilla sat beside Tom, feeling thankful for the new friendships. The travelers stayed for several days. They learned from Karas and shared their own knowledge. Together, they dreamed of spreading kindness to other villages. Before they left, the leader of the travelers, a strong woman named Nira, spoke to the council. Your courage has saved many. We will carry your story to others. You have shown us that even the smallest hope can grow into a great change. The village celebrated their new friend's departure with a feast. For the first time in many years, everyone ate together, marked and unmarked, young and old. Veshka and Traveler, Zilla looked around at the joyful faces and felt a deep peace. The desert was still vast and difficult, but they no longer faced it alone. One evening, Tom and Zilla stood on a small hill overlooking the village. The stars sparkled above, and the cool desert breeze touched their faces. Do you think the future will be easier? Zilla asked. Tom smiled. The future is always full of challenges, but with kindness and trust, you can face anything. Zilla nodded. I believe that now. I believe we are stronger together. They watched the village below, alive with light and laughter. The journey from fear to hope had not been easy, but it was real. The desert night held a promise of new beginnings. In a world where no one was denied water or kindness, the village of Karas had grown quiet under the soft light of dawn. The stars had faded, and the warm sun was beginning to rise over the endless desert. Life in the village was different now. Where once fear and silence had ruled, now there was hope and laughter. Zilla stood at the edge of the village, looking out over the desert. Her arm, once marked with a sign of shame, now felt like a badge of courage. The people of Karas had accepted her and many others who had been called impure. Together, they had built something new, a community based on kindness and trust. Tom stood beside her, watching the small garden where children played and watered young plants. You have done great things, Zilla, he said softly. Your courage changed this village. Zilla smiled. I could not have done it alone. The village changed because everyone found hope. As the sun rose higher, the village came alive with activity. The water collectors glistened in the light, and the gardens were green and full of life. The new water systems worked well, and no one was denied the water they needed. The council met that morning to plan for the future. They spoke about teaching others in the desert about kindness and water sharing. They wanted to send messengers to nearby villages and towns to spread the new way of life. Mara, once a strict elder, now spoke with warmth. We were afraid of change, but now we see that kindness is the strongest rule of all. Taro smiled. As he listened, we are ready to help others. Our village can be a light in the desert. Zilla felt proud to be part of this new beginning. Later that day, visitors from neighboring villages arrived. They had heard stories of Karas and wanted to learn how the village had changed. They asked many questions about the water collectors, the gardens, and the new laws. Zilla and Tom showed them around. They explained how sharing water had brought life to everyone. The visitors listened carefully, surprised that kindness could bring such strength. One visitor, a woman named Rena, said, We have lived in fear for many years. Your story gives us hope. The villagers of Karas welcomed their guests with open arms. They shared food, water, and stories around the fire that night. The music and laughter filled the desert air. As the visitors prepared to leave, Mars spoke. Go back to your homes and tell your people that change is possible. Tell them kindness can save lives. The visitors promised to carry the message far and wide. That night, Zilla stood outside her hut, looking at the stars. She thought about the long journey she had taken from being called impure and denied water to becoming a leader in her village. She felt the cool breeze on her face and smiled. The desert was still tough, but now it was full of life. Tom joined her and said, The future will not be easy. There will always be challenges. But you have shown that courage and kindness can change the world. Zilla nodded. I want to help others find hope, just like we did, together. They looked up at the sky. The stars seemed brighter than ever. The next morning, Zilla and Tom prepared for a new journey. They would travel with the visitors to nearby villages. They would share their story, their knowledge, and their hope. The people of Cares gathered to say goodbye. They gave gifts of water and food, and many promised to keep the spirit of kindness alive. Zilla felt the strength of her community. She knew they would continue to grow and change Dot as they left the village. Tom placed a hand on Zilla's shoulder. This is only the beginning. Zilla smiled, ready to face whatever came next. The desert stretched out before them, wide and full of promise. Dot, and in the hearts of those who walked it, hope was alive.